What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 150, and we are enduring the cold weather. I feel like this is the beginning of the unfortunate time we call winter.
I feel like you are off of, I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones or ever heard of it, but like winter is coming.
The only reason I know that phrase is because there is a professional bodybuilder. Obviously, that's a sport I follow. I'm not sure if you'd consider it a sport, but that's a hobby that I follow.
Yeah.
And the reigning Mr. Olympia, which for those that are unfamiliar, the Mr. Olympia is like the essentially the pinnacle of
It's the
bodybuilding.
coup de grace.
Yes, it's like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. And the reigning champion, who's won a couple times the past few times, he before he won his first Olympia, he knew he was coming in really, really good and was going to be difficult to beat. And he had this phrase that he said, "Winter is coming." He said at a press conference, and people, unlike myself, knew that was from the Game of Thrones, right? And
Yeah.
and they talked about it and stuff. But that's the only reason I know that phrase. I have not seen any of the popular stuff like Game of Thrones, or I think the Hunger Games is pretty popular as well. I tell people that I don't watch anything from like Netflix or any of that stuff. The only reason is because I have like a very addictive personality in terms of things like that. Like I become kind of like borderline obsessive. And I know that
Yeah.
if I watch something on Netflix, like especially like a longer or lengthier series like that, I feel like it would completely like encapsulate me and trap me in, and I wouldn't be able to get away from it. So for that
Yeah.
reason,
I
I
have
kind of shy away.
I know that about you, and I have literally in our friendship, I have not recommended you watch certain shows because I know you'd be binge watching and not getting anything else done because
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I only did that one time. I started like this was years ago, and it was even
wasn't it in college?
no, this
Oh.
was shortly after college, actually, right after I had graduated and gotten a job teaching. I watched an episode on Netflix of Burn Notice, which was even like an
Mhm.
older, not old, but older show at the time. And I like really, really liked it. Well, then if I was lying around the house at night and didn't have a lot going on, which at that time was kind of, I don't want to say rare or wasn't frequent, but it was a lot more frequent that I had free time then than now. And I would watch like an episode of Bird Notice. And after a couple episodes, I really liked it. And I told myself, you know what? I'm going to watch it from the beginning. I'm going to go to season one, episode one, and watch the whole thing. So I started doing that. And then it was like one of those things where I would say one more episode at like
Mhm.
7 p.m. And then I'd go to bed at 2 in the morning, which is very, very, very uncharacteristic for me. But I
Right.
couldn't help it. Like I was like, one more episode, one more episode, one more episode. So honestly, with stuff like that, I know that avoidance is the best strategy for me. I don't know. It's like we
Absolutely.
talked about the one time. Like, is that not in regards to this, but in regards to any type of like character flaw? Is that good self discipline or is that bad self discipline? Remember we had that conversation a few episodes ago where
Yeah.
it's like, is that
Yeah.
good self discipline that I recognize my issue and I avoid it, or is it bad self discipline that I'm aware of the issue and I don't have the
Yeah.
ability or the control or the mental capacity or fortitude to fix it?
I think that's like the age old battle, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just it's maybe it's both.
Mhm. Like a step
Um,
thing, like for the first step is kind of like they say with recovery, the first step is admitting that you have a problem. There's the admittance piece there, and I need to
yeah,
be actively working to control it and not become obsessive over things. It's a very, really strange habit. I don't know. I've kind of
I
been like
mean
that a lot.
it it sucks though, especially with like the binge watching thing because they design it to do that to you.
Hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like all, all like binge. That's why there's like binge worthy series because they design them to be that way. They leave every episode as a cliffhanger. They have the storyline just interesting enough that you need to know the next piece, and it's available, so you don't have to wait. Like
Yeah,
that's the
that's
one
the
thing. That's
problem
the one
is
thing. Is
availability, dude. I'm glad. Yeah, it's man.
yeah,
That's you hit the nail on the head there.
yeah, and I mean, I could go down a rabbit hole of why, you know, America is the heaviest country in the world. The availability of food. You know,
Hmm.
it's every corner. You've talked about that before. You can't go you can't go for a 5 minute drive in your car in rural, even in rural America, and not find a restaurant.
Yeah, for sure. And then like
So
so that's one of the things that I start off, and I mentioned this before when we were talking about that earlier on the podcast, is I was discussing one episode about our relationship with hunger is very skewed. So
yeah,
when you think about like biologically and ancestrally, when you talk about hunger, it was the signal for the search for food. Like, okay, I'm hungry. I need to go search for food. Not that people, I am obviously was not alive during caveman hunter gatherer time, so I couldn't say for certain. But physiologically, you would think that that would be the sign that it was time to go eat or time to go hunt. So when they would go hunt, there were times when it wasn't as easy as I'm going to go hunt and then I'm going to come back in a little bit with a carcass and eat. It was
right.
sometimes a multi-day event. So more or less you could say that hunger was a sensation, an enzymatic sensation that would last for it could last 2 days, could last a couple hours, could last a week, potentially that long. So people were used to the sensation of hunger, whereas now you have it just readily available. Like we talk about, and yeah, I know this is a talking point for a lot of people, like the instant gratification society. Well, and I'm guilty as anybody. As soon as I'm hungry, I can get food within seconds, regardless of where I'm at. I can usually get something to eat in a relatively short period of time. So,
Yeah, even if you didn't blame it on the restaurants or the hyper availability of like places to go to eat,
yeah,
the availability to and the technology to store food that we have versus when our ancestors were like early ancestors lived, they had no way to really store food. Like they had to kill it, hunt it, kill it, eat it.
yeah, yeah. And
So
that's
with
one of the
us, we
things
have
that I complain about.
refrigerators
Go ahead.
and technology. We have refrigerators and technology. We know how to, even salt food to make it last, or preservatives and ways techniques to meal prep 6 meals and take them with us for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I like have been a little bit of a critic on is like how like I hate that a lot of the food I buy because I buy I guess natural food for lack of a better term. And it goes bad within a
Yeah,
relatively short period of time. So like if you buy fresh fruit, it has to be eaten within X amount of days, otherwise it's going to go bad. And likewise with any type of meat product, unless it's frozen, of course. But if you cook it, you have to eat it in a relatively short period of time. Or if it's in the refrigerator, it has to be cooked within a relatively short period of time. Whereas now, the availability of foods with preservatives in them and things that you can stockpile can last for months and months and months. So the
oh
the
yeah,
availability and the technology, especially with like I don't want to say bad foods, but you know what I mean, unhealthy or less healthy options is a lot greater. The technology is greater and the availability is greater. Therefore, it's kind of like the old saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like
right.
systematically, the way that the food industry is set up is conducive to us being out of shape. Now, that's something that we can
It's
combat on our own, but a lot of times people also um, don't have the time to combat it. Well, because it's again, I broken record here. I always say this that people, and if you've listened to this show frequently, you're probably hearing this for the millionth time. I am a firm believer in diets that people follow not working, and it's not predicated on a lack of discipline, but rather a lack of sustainability and structure. So people who go on a diet, they set it up so it's not something that they can sustain. And usually it's not like, oh, because of cravings or because of lack of food, like they're in such a immense caloric deficit. A lot of times it's just because of the fact that they don't have time. So if I don't have
right.
time to prepare food, I can get something that's doesn't need prepared, which a lot of times is not very good. So that's kind of like the food industry is just a little bit set up that way, where it's ironic because it's super convenient and made for our benefit, but ultimately, is it really in our benefit to be eating those foods, right?
Right. No, I get it. I agree. It's something that, you know, a lot of Americans deal with, or not even Americans, it's people,
Mhm.
deal with. They, we fall into that, back into that I want it and I want it now stage. And unfortunately, and it is unfortunate, we have it, it's available. You know what I mean? It's hyper available.
Well, it is. It is. And like the other thing too that is in play here is there's now this is counterintuitive to things I've said in the past, but there's kind of a strange line between what would be healthy and what would be unhealthy. So some food that is has like a high or a long shelf life isn't necessarily terrible for you. So it's not like just because a food lasts a long time on the shelf means it's terrible, but more likely than not, the healthier options are things that are going to go bad quicker.
Right.
And I think that healthy
Absolutely.
food is like that. That's something that when you talk about nutrition is all over the board because it's kind of like a sliding scale. So I actually had this conversation yesterday morning at the gym. I forget what originally brought it up. I don't remember the exact food or what we were talking about, but a guy I know from the gym and I were talking about nutrition. And we said something along the lines of something being oh, I remember what it was. It was oatmeal. And someone asked about oatmeal and like my thoughts on it. And I gave a personal, like some anecdotal stuff for me personally. And I said that I don't eat oatmeal. I love oatmeal, but every time I do it, it gives me horrible, horrible gas. And it's not like cross contamination, like from a gluten intolerance or anything like that, or like I have celiacs or anything, but I just get horrible, horrible gas from it. And I've done it like an elimination style uh, numerous times to know definitively that that is exactly what causes it. It's weird because I don't have any other GI symptoms. I'm asymptomatic otherwise. Like it's not like I have like cramping or bloating. It's just really, really awful gas. So I stay away from it. But then we started talking about certain foods that were kind of good for you, kind of not. And it sort of elicited a conversation of like, it depends, like who you are, whether it's healthy for you or not. And I don't mean that in a genetic like variability way, but just in the simple fact of where you're at in your journey. And you and I have also talked about this before. Like,
Right.
take someone that's super overweight. If you're super overweight, something like dairy is likely a healthier option than the things that you're eating. So if you're drinking milk from like grass-fed, free-range cows, and you're drinking the milk, that's probably something that's healthier option than if you're severely overweight. The other things that you're probably putting in your body, like I'm assuming maybe alcohol consumption or pop or whatever you're having. So
Right.
but if you're an elite level athlete, like a professional bodybuilder, X amount of weeks from the show, dairy can be pretty pro-inflammatory. So you may want to stay away from that. So depending on what type of like, so how extreme are you being? Because I've been a firm believer, and I've said this to people that I think that food can either be categorized as healthy or unhealthy for most people. Like obviously, again, if you're the upper echelon, like the top 1% of health, then you're going to have to get a little bit more specific with it. But if you're just looking for a normal person who's maybe a little bit overweight and doesn't spend time in the gym and just wants to get healthier, you can really break it down and separate it into healthy, non-healthy.
Right. Yeah, it's relatively simple when it comes to the beginning stages of like a weight loss plan or just lifestyle change to where you want to get to a more healthy lifestyle.
And you would be the first person that I would ask about that because now, I guess now would be a good time to do it because you went through that. You went through the stages of being sedentary and doing nothing and gaining weight to where you were severely overweight and then losing it. What was the starting point for you nutritionally speaking as far as food choices? Like obviously you're going to have to eat less, or maybe that's not so obvious. Maybe you didn't eat less. Maybe you just switched around the types of foods you were eating so there's a lot less inflammation and that caused the body systemically to work more efficiently and that kind of engendered the fat loss initially. But what was like the starting point for you from a nutrition aspect? Because I think we've talked about it before, but people just to remember that you and I, when we worked together, didn't work together initially. You had lost weight on
Yeah.
your own first, and then came to me for the next 150 pounds or whatever it was. So, what was like the initial stages like for you, especially someone who had no basis of nutrition to begin with?
Yeah. So originally, the first several, I don't know, first 100 times that I tried to lose weight, I would go on, the store bought diets where, you click Google and you find out a diet and you try and follow it.
Uh huh.
And it never worked. So I kind of did some research a little bit. And at the time I drank a lot of pop, like a lot of soda, um, heavy in sugar. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to stop drinking pop. I just quit. Just literally overnight, quit drinking pop.
So that was the
And
first step.
anytime I
There
would
was
want
no
to
other
drink
type of
something,
restriction. It was
that
just
was
that.
that was it. So I
Wow.
replaced all my soda and sugar filled drinks with water, coffee, tea, and my guilty pleasure of energy drinks.
Hmm.
And I went with 0 calorie energy drinks.
Okay.
When I am not suggesting that to anybody because it's not good for you, but that's what I did, and I lost 30 pounds in 30 days.
Wow.
Um, Now I want to, I need to circle around that I was 526 pounds, and outside of my work that I performed, I did nothing.
Hmm.
So with that being said, and I drank, I mean, I between beer and pop, I bet you I drank a case, a 12 pack of something every day.
Wow.
So yeah, so I mean, it was not a, and sometimes a lot of times it would be diet pop
Hmm.
or light beer. So it's not always the sugar, it's the chemicals. It's the aspartame, it's the things they put in it. So that's my always my go-to. My first suggestion is I ask people what they drink. And then, the irony in that is whenever I started working with you, that was a big thing we talked about was how much water are you drinking?
Hmm.
So, you know, I I figure that the best starting place that I always tell people is to just eliminate the bad stuff that you're doing that's terrible. So it was pop, and then my diet changes came. A few weeks later, I instead of going crazy on it, I just stopped eating fast food. I
Yep.
ate everything that I could make in my house. I was still eating bologna and cheese sandwiches. I was still eating any meals that we cooked at home, but I wouldn't go out to eat. And then if I didn't even have to wait for weight loss to slow down because I just got the ball rolling because I felt better because I wasn't drinking pop and I wasn't eating, grease covered fast food. So I was feeling better, which made me lose weight. And I did. I'd say I lost another 10 pounds the second month
Hmm.
because I was down like 45 pounds in 2 months.
Yeah.
And that would be December, January. Yeah. So then February came, and that's when I started to integrate some exercise.
Okay.
And the exercise was literally just go for a walk. Like I work in the oil field, so my work day is not 9 to 5. It was 5 o'clock in the morning till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And every day in the month of February in 2019, I think it was, I went for a walk. I would just on my way home, I would stop at the park on the way home and in my work clothes and jackets and stuff and just walk as much as I possibly could. And at the beginning, it wasn't much. It was, it took me 45 minutes to do over just under 3/4 of a mile, but I did it, and it was that the small changes and then the small adding of exercise started to help. And then I started to cut out carbohydrates because that was, with success, you start doing more research because you want more success.
Yep.
So everything I read, everything I knew was get rid of the bread, get rid of the carbohydrates because they turn to sugars, and essentially that's all I had taken away was sugar. So I was like, I don't want any more sugar anyway, so no more carbs. So I stopped eating carbs, not like completely, but I stopped eating bread and processed carbs. Only carbs I ate would be like potatoes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it was more of an incremental thing, just slowly eliminate, a few items at a time until I got to a point where I lost about, well, the reason I met you was because I lost 100 pounds and my boss bought me a membership to the gym that you work at.
Yeah,
So,
so you were would have been 426 then. Well, at
yeah,
least 426 because 526 was the start. So you were about 426 then, I would assume, after you hit your 100 mark,
yeah.
obviously. So,
And I started at the gym and quickly, I soon, my first day in the gym, I asked the owner, I said, hey, I need a membership and I need a workout plan because I don't want to come in here and not have something to follow, and I need some structure in my life. So,
mhm.
and so he gave me a 10-week plan. I got about halfway through it. No, I lied. Not halfway through it. I got about 1.5 days into it and didn't know what stuff meant, and asked around, and somebody says, the guy with no shoes on, go talk to him. And the rest is history. I mean, because we know what on the show we know what I've done with you.
Yeah,
150 pounds in 4 months.
yeah. It
Um,
ended up being combining what you did solo for that initial burst and then coming with me for a little bit. That was 226 pounds or 227 pounds in
yep,
one calendar year to the date.
yep, yep.
So
So
everything you named, dude, was like, okay, so we started the conversation off talking about lack of sustainability in nutrition. Everything you named off was something that was completely sustainable for you at the time. Like, or
yeah,
actually should be sustainable for everybody. Like you said, okay, I'm limiting pop consumption. So no more soda. So if you have the availability to buy pop, you clearly have the availability to buy water or access
right.
to water. So if you're replacing that, then that's something that's sustainable. If you're going to drink, just drink water instead of pop. That's a practice that anybody could be able to do. And then,
I was gonna say I'd like to add to the sustainability piece. Like if you're given, like when I give diet advice or tips to people, I use the word sustainability, but I also tell them you have to be willing too. Like you have to want to not do the things that are hurting you. You know,
that's where
so
like I could say about like, okay, well, yeah, it's sustainable and we need to look for practices that you can keep up with. But I shouldn't, you're right. I shouldn't be dismissive of the fact that like it does require hard work regardless. Like you're going to have to want to do it. You're right. That's a very good point.
yeah, you can't. You're not gonna win this battle without effort. Like
Yeah.
there's no, the picture that goes around on social media. Yeah, there's a blue pill and it comes with $10 million, and a red pill that gives you the knowledge to achieve anything you ever wanted to achieve. There's no pills. There's no secret pill that's actually going to make that happen.
Mhm.
So you have to the pill is do the work.
Yes. Yeah, certainly. So that's you're right. I kind of lose that message sometimes when I talk about even with like clients about the importance of having some structure that is something that you can maintain. And I think that I do it that way not only for longevity purposes, but also because there's mental buy-in. Like if I give someone an initial plan that's they surmise is easy to follow, like they're like, oh, I could do this, then you're gonna get a little bit more buy-in versus
Absolutely.
especially when they see like small wins versus I give them a huge plan in the first couple of days. They have a tough time getting all the food and they have to figure out how they're going to meal prep all of it at once. And they don't have time to fit all their meals in initially. And it's like this big cluster. Then you tend to, that person becomes disengaged right from the start, which is, which is obviously not what you want to do.
Right.
So moving forward, dude, I have an interesting kind of like mentality that I wanted to talk with you about today. Where I've been in this like weird headspace. It's a good thing, but I haven't really vocalized it to many people or anybody for that matter. So I kind of want to go through a little bit of like this mental edge that I've had lately and kind of share it with you and share it with the listeners because I think it would help everybody out. This, like many things, is going to be kind of a tangent we'll have to go on that's a little bit lengthier. So before we do that, I think we should go to a commercial break.
Okay, sounds good.
So what I will do is we'll go to a quick commercial break and then I'll talk more to you about this little headspace that I'm in when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, I told you that I've been in a weird mental state lately, and I say that as a good thing. I don't want to say weird as in bad. It's just, to be honest, it's a little bit abnormal for me because I'm not used to it. But let me preface this by telling you, and this is more telling the listeners because you know that I'm like this. With the obsessive compulsive type of mentality also comes a string of anxiety because I obsess over things and stress over things and worry about things. And I can do all the self-help and all the coaching in the world and read all the books and listen to all the podcasts about how to think positively and to shape my mentality and stuff. But I feel like for people, I go back and forth because I understand that you have to make a definitive decision or a conscientious effort to change, right? Like with you, with your weight loss, like you had to decide, okay, I'm going to do this because, like you alluded to, there were several attempts before your big weight loss. Like, this is time, got to do it right now. So I understand that there's like that decision making that needs to happen. But I also think that things need to happen like organically or authentically. So, like, if I went to you, and I'm sure you've had this happen before, if I went to you and said, Justin, you have to lose weight, like before you started your fitness journey, that may not be very helpful because you have to be ready when you're ready. I can't tell you, hey, you got to do this, hey, you got to do that. It has to come from within you. And I'm sure that you would agree with that, correct?
Oh, 100%. I mean, encouragement's one thing, but until you're bought in and on it, it's nothing.
Yeah, sure. Like I can't control your body. So I've had this kind of this thing that's happened to me. I don't know why it's happened. I don't know how it's happened. It wasn't something that I actively tried to correct, but once I noticed a few like unfortunate events happening in my life and my initial response to them was this, I was like, holy crap, that was really beneficial to me. And now I've like taken it and I've ran with it. So lately, this has been the past couple months. I've been, like I said, I've been in a real good headspace because I've looked at every single thing that's happened in my life lately, negative thing that's happened in my life, or positive, I shouldn't say just negative, is being, I call it solutions oriented mentality. So just like the name implies, my mentality is one that is geared towards solutions. Um, so the police chief at one of the local police departments, one of the things, and I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, he always used to say, and his name's Brian McKenzie, and Officer McKenzie always used to say, don't tell me what I don't have, tell me what I do have. So he was involved with a football program and like the touchdown club booster program and stuff. And he would always basically saying, don't tell me all the negatives. Tell me what we have, what we can work with. Tell me what we got. And
Right.
that was kind of like a solutions oriented mentality, you know, and I kind of been hit or miss with that. Like take coaching, for example, where it would say, oh, well, we have holes at our defensive line where we don't have players that are experienced enough to contribute right now. And it's like, okay, well, let's not talk about who we don't have and all the holes we have. Let's talk about some of the good players that we have that are experienced that we can put into good positions to be successful to help our team. And for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, I have taken that mentality and I have put it into all this bad stuff that's happened. So, like, for example, one of the things that I'm going through right now is a roofing issue. So, when I bought my house, the roof was within 10 years old, so it's not very old. However, I don't know if it was like weather damage or not, but there's a part that was damaged, and we had some roofers come out and inspect it and said that it was fine, that it was because there was water damage in the ceiling beneath that part of the roof. And I was told that it was an earlier issue that probably happened before the roof was replaced. And now that the roof was replaced, there's not going to be any more water damage. Well, that has since changed, and whatever the roof issue is has gotten worse. And my bedroom upstairs is like leaking into a tote now when it rains a lot, and it's on the verge of like collapsing in a pretty large area. And I have like some totes underneath it. So like, you buy a house a year ago and already you're running into like issues like this that need resolved. Now, initially when it happened and I saw that it was like actually not okay, like a month or two ago, and it was getting worse, I was like, I want to say panic stricken, but it was like obsessing over it and stressing about it. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, I got to get this part of my roof fixed and replaced. And I was having a tough time getting a hold of people to do it. And people would come out and say they would give me estimates and then never returned with an estimate. And I would call the shops and leave voicemails. And it was just like a huge, huge to do. And now I'm to the point where I recently had someone look at it who's going to fix it. They're a little bit slow in returning or getting back to me with an estimate, but I know that they're going to fix it. And that's all that I can do. I can only control the controllables. And I have taken that and I have done that with everything. So every single thing to this point, nothing completely catastrophic, obviously, but all these little things that would normally bother me and I would obsess and stress over, I just immediately say to myself, okay, how am I going to fix it? And every single thing that I've had, I have the capability of fixing. It may not be on my time. It may not be financially comfortable for me to fix. It may not be comfortable for me to fix in regards to the time that I need to allocate to it. But regardless, it's going to get fixed and I'm going to be okay, because I think I mentioned this one time that every single thing in my life that I've stressed over has been okay, because here I am, still functioning,
Right.
still able bodied, still have my health, still have my family. So like, like you go back and you look at these things in my life that I think have would be insurmountable. Like I'll never overcome this. This is like life altering. Like I hate this. My life is over. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, look, I've gotten over everything that I've stressed about so far. So why did I stress about any of it?
Yeah, the controlling the controllables is it's probably some of the best advice anybody can receive. Um, because you can't control the uncontrollable. Like you never will be able to. If it's uncontrollable, you can't control it.
Yeah, I
So you
used to
have
be
to
like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you almost have to like engineer it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, control every aspect of the surrounding problems around the roof that's leaking.
Mhm.
And then that will come, it will reveal the way you're going to control that.
Yeah. Like, what can I do? I can call some people. I can make sure that I have my finances in order to be able to fix it. I can make sure that I set reminders to touch base and circle back with people that I haven't heard from in regards to providing me with an estimate on what they think needs done. So, like, I have all these things that I can control to get it done, but that's all that I have control over. So, why should I stress
Right.
about anything else? Because it's going to get
You're not
fixed.
going to run their business. You're not going to swing the hammer yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
You've executed the steps in order to get that or bring yourself to a solution. And until the solution is carried out, you've done your part, and you just have to keep doing your part.
Hmm.
Uh, that's like homeowners. I mean, especially with homeownership, people do that so much, and the problem is there's a lot of people that don't control the controllables.
Yes.
I I being one of them. Like I hate we had a leak in our sink in our kitchen years ago, not too long ago, I guess. I mean, a couple years ago, and I kept, we would worry about it. We were fretting about it. We had towels that we were soaking up it was a small leak, so it was just a little bit of water that would get on the floor. We would soak it up with a towel and then replace the towel every day or two. And it was I didn't control the controllables because I didn't take everything out from underneath the sink, take a look and see why is it leaking.
Yep.
So I can make an educated phone call to a plumber and say, hey, can you do the X, Y, and Z?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what needs fixed.
Well, that's
But we
the
would
other thing that, like, I'm glad you said that, because that's the other thing that has come along with this mentality is not only controlling the controllables and being a solutions oriented person, but because I am solutions oriented, it's driven me to expedite problems a lot quicker, because instead of like stressing, which would usually result in no progress, I am saying, okay, what's the solution? I got to find it right now. Let's do this right now. Let me call someone right now. I'm going to get it solved. So I've been a lot more on top of things, more so than I even was in the past. And it's been a miraculous kind of epiphany for me. I know it sounds silly because it's like, this is all obvious stuff. Like, oh, yeah, you're not being lazy and stressing about things and you're actually going to fix them. Like, no duh, Charlie. That's like obviously a very good solution. But it's like I've just been able to put it into practice now. And I don't know where it came from, which is the odd part, because this just kind of like stemmed randomly where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to stress about a lot of stuff anymore. I'm just going to take care of what I can take care of and just deal with what I can deal with. I don't,
and
that's
really
like,
that's
maybe
all
I'm
you
just
can do.
finally starting to mature now. I don't know.
So I chalked it up to maturity too, because I got to a point not too long ago, I'd
Uh-huh.
say within the last 3 or 4 years, 3 years. And it really came along with my weight loss
Yeah,
of the controllables. That was one of my things too, is like I'm only gonna worry about the things that are in my power that I can fix.
certainly.
If I and if I fail at fixing those items and doing and accomplishing those tasks, that's on me. But everything else, which at that point, if you really look at it, we say I'm not a roofer. Check. Okay. I needed a roof 2 years ago. I got a new roof. I'm sitting in my truck looking at my house. There's a new roof on my house. So it was in my power to fix. I could not swing the hammer. I didn't had no knowledge of replacing a roof. But
Yep.
like you said, make the phone calls, get the bids, pay the man, get it done.
Yep. I
And
think
then
that's very actually,
I honestly didn't think of the back part that you did, where save the money so you have the money to pay the man, that step. But the things that are in your power to fix, you fix, and then
mhm.
everything else will, as you control the controllables, more items become controllable. The only thing really in our life that isn't controllable is the actions of others.
Yep. And
Once you start to engineer everything in your life to go your way.
well, and the other thing that you hear frequently is that the one thing that you can always control, even in the presence of other people's actions, is your response to it. Like may not
Yes.
be able to control what Justin does, but I can control my response to what Justin does. Which, whenever
Yep.
you're able to get command and mastery over your thoughts in that regard, I mean, talk
I
about
want you as a guest.
yeah, yeah, right. And talk about like a powerful, powerful person.
Yeah.
Like to be able
Not
to control
not
your own
dangerous in a
emotions.
bad play, but dangerous because you're on the high road to success.
Yes, absolutely. So that'll be a good place to end it. If there's anybody out there that feels like they have complete control over their emotions and their responses to events, please, by all means, contact us because we'd like to have you on and get some insight because Justin and I are both actively working to get there.
Yeah, I will call you sensei. Teach me.
Yes, absolutely. So, with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 150. As always, we appreciate your listenership and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week. Unbreakable, unstoppable,
to the edge and take it all. I'm born to be untamable. Go right to the edge and